will be a Zyra game. And I mean, you've got all the way up to gold, been making progress. That's always good.
Yeah, I climbed from bronze this season, but I just hit like a brick wall just now at gold 1, gold
Okay,
2.
okay. Yeah, fresh pair of eyes usually, help a lot with that. Just trying to figure out what, maybe you're doing some things good, but not quite, quite landing on all of the correct things that we want to see for this. So, I mean, usually what I like to do is kind of just poke your brain. So, oh, wow. Okay, we're going to
It
start off
started really
immediately.
scuffed.
Okay, so it's perfect, actually. This is actually a great thing to talk about, though, which is spotting, right? It's something that can just, like, get you killed instantly and you feel like, okay, well, what the hell? Like, what? Like oh, I guess I shouldn't be there, but, like, where should you have been kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about level 1. So common mistakes that people make. Even I do this sometimes on my on my stream. So I'm not even pervious to this. Is standing for level 1. So it's really important that you're covering whatever corridor that you're doing, but in a way that's not exposed. So a common mistake actually that people see a lot for this side is that you see where you're coming from right here and how little space you have to like move if you're in this spot. Like if you're spotting from even just this spot, they could walk around and get onto you, right? They can come from this brush, etc. So really what you want to do is you just want to stand in a spot that reveals all the vision at the same time. So what you want to do is you want to stand here. That way you can still see the ramp the whole time. No one can, cut around here, like throw a skill shot at you. Even if they're coming from Fog of War, you're usually in a good shape. So yeah, for level 1 standing, always want to stand here. Always like around this location, just so you can still see this ramp right here. And that means that you don't walk in and, get blown up. Because really what happens, right, is... See how close you are to a lot of terrain that you can't see anymore? Someone can come over a wall. Dude, even like a player just sitting right here can see you right now, by the way, if you didn't know that. He can see you. You are actually visible to this player. So here, what I'll do is I'll do this. See? This right here? So actually, here you go. This is a great visual representation to help you kind of understand. So that's why you don't want to really stand in this spot just in general. Just super easy to die. I think a lot of people make the same mistake. I do too sometimes. We'll just talk about it real quick, is like red side. So like standing in this brush, people can go here and then wrap around and kill you instantly. So like standing in this location or this location so you can still cover the corridor but not get jumped on is really, really helpful. So make sure we're applying that to our level 1s in the future. And it's easy to feel like, nothing's happening at the first minute or whatever, right? You're just kind of sitting there waiting for spawns, etc. But these tools will help you just basically erase deaths at level 1. It's just not necessary for you to die level 1 most of the time without your opponents being really creative. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this isn't a really creative kill, right? We're kind of handing it to them in that sense. So, yeah, right here, this is your sweet spot. And this is your sweet spot. So if you're standing in those 2 spots, it should be pretty hard for you to die. And then if for whatever reason your AD carry doesn't spot like Tribush or whatever, then I just recommend either leaving or scooting all the way back to here. Okie dokie. Level 1s. Sometimes very frustrating. Trust me, I've been there. No one likes to die level 1.
Yeah, this was just annoying.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's totally fair. I mean, a lot of this is because of level 1. You die, they get to invade, they get to walk behind you, etc. So actually, let's just talk about reactive play real quick, because this is actually kind of a unique game, but something you might see actually more the higher you go. So the enemy players, they've killed you at level 1. And they've walked into the jungle, so I'll even draw it further back. After they kill you, they walk right into the jungle. So them doing your buff is a pretty common thing to do. So I'm pretty sure you have a ward right now. So anytime this happens, you've sacrificed, you've seeded this side of the map. What you can do is you can just walk over here and put a ward down. That will allow you to kind of either they're stealing our they're stealing our jungle. So I need to be careful of being jumped level 1. Or you go, oh, okay, they're not on it. Perfect. I don't have to worry about being ganked. And I can play the lane normally. It's really worth it to use this ward. So make sure that we're kind of adding that as, a scenario where even if you didn't get killed, let's just say you stood here and they all ran into the jungle, killed your Shaco boxes, forced your Shaco out, etc. then really this ward is still a great tool in your belt. So let's make sure we're actively using it, where you can just walk here, boom, throw it over the wall, instantly lets you know what's going on in the game. Information is your greatest tool, so we want to make sure that we're always getting that good information. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, cool. That way, yeah, like these kinds of things that are like, you like roll your eyes like, oh, of course they're fucking behind me now, and I'm getting cheesed, and like all this stuff. But a lot of this is actually really avoidable for you. A lot of that is like super avoidable. So
yeah, I tried pinging Twitch not to push the wave because I figured they'd probably all come after the invade.
But it's a good flash. I'm glad that we're, using our summoners, not holding on to it, and not getting killed at level 1. That would be even worse, right? So, good exercise in that sense. So, right now we're just chilling. I like that you're willing to auto-attack a little bit. Stepping back. So, main things to note is right here. So, you gotta have restrain when it comes to the level 2s, right? You've gotten pushed in. You're probably poking a little bit too hard, actually. I would say that what you're doing is a little bit on the risky side. So when you're playing defensively, probably auto-attacking is not the move. You just lost your flash. It's pretty easy for them to just flash on you whenever they want. So really what you want to do is when you're playing defensively, we want to be actively just playing around plants. When playing defensively, use your seed spawns / plants to poke, not your autos. Like autos are kind of like a luxury where, okay, we want to see that done when you're, in a neutral state, or maybe you're even in an advantage, right? They're poked, you got the huge wave going for you, etc. But when you're playing from behind, right, you're getting pushed into the turret. Maybe you lost your flash level 1, like this one's a good example. And they're going to hit level 2 first. We should just be playing around poke. So, like, here is a seed, here is a seed. So I would tell myself, okay, like, that's where I want to play around, defensively. If the AD carry starts wrapping around, I can spawn a plant and harass him a little bit. If the other guy pushes in too far, maybe I can pull back and use this seed. Want to make sure that we're not, like, giving opportunities to them, because I would say, like, right here, for example, the way they're about to hit level 2, you're kind of doing the opposite of what we want to see, where we want to make sure that if you're getting pushed in, we're not getting punished for the level 2. So we want to try to actively build good habits for that. Because he could have actually W'd and flashed on you and killed you right here. With the level 2. And even here, like, you are walking up to auto attack. But remember what I told you before, which is that we want to play through our seeds. So what I would tell you is the wave's going to start pushing into you. It'd be great is if you're just chilling right here. And then if they start walking in the wave, see these 2 seeds? Boom, we can look for pressure and harass that way. That way you're not putting yourself in like danger of losing HP or maybe getting all in, but you're still creating some poke and damage in the laning phase. So that's kind of like the bread and butter of like what we want to see with Zyra. So you actually kind of do it right here, partly, but we want to make sure that you're not getting jumped on, you're not losing a ton of HP, etc. Because that's just like an unnecessary trade where you're losing a bunch of HP for kind of free for sure.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. So, like, that's a great trade, right? You're using your Q, and, there's a seed right there. Boom. We instantly get poke harass. I just want to see more of that. I like that you do auto-attack, though. That is good. I think that is a super helpful skill to have that a lot of people struggle with. An auto-attack is like two plant autos in terms of damage.
My thinking here was I was trying to auto to get kind of some aggro on the minions, get them on the tower, and since we don't have prio, they obviously killed me early on. Maybe the turret killing minions would help us get 3 to like evade their 3 engage. I think I do it a couple times where I kind of drag, and it's probably annoying for Twitch, but I'm just kind of thinking for the long run that the turret's gonna kill minions way faster than we can alone. I don't know if that was like a good thing to do because I know I'm making him lose CS.
Yeah, probably like not that necessary, to be completely honest with you. That might be like an over complication for your lane. So let's talk about snares actually, because this is actually a tool that you really don't want to use a lot. Even though it feels really great to hit it, I mean Zyra is like one of, if not the slowest skills in the entire game. So if you're shooting it from really long range, the likelihood you hit it is pretty low, right? It's pretty low. You're most likely not going to be doing that. So really what I want you to try to start working on is throwing your snares at good opportunities. This is kind of like one of the core fundamentals of laning phase that is really, really important. So you see your minions, right? You see like the minion HP right now. That's really what you're going to use as an indicator for when you want to throw your snares. When your minions are low, the AD carry wants to walk up and last hit, right? And guess what? That takes mental focus. And honestly, if you throw a spell at someone and they dodge your skill shot instead of last hitting the minion, guess what? Your spell has value, no matter what. And this is a like really important like fundamental for creating pressure in our lane. So when throwing snares, especially snares / spells, this is just a good fundamental thing. Try to pay attention to our own minions HP. When they are low, ADCs will want to walk up. Right? So this is kind of a really important core fundamental thing. Because otherwise, I think you're just going to throw out roots. And honestly, a lot of times when I do lane phase breakdowns, the most important thing is your CC in your lane, right? Thresh, hook, Blitzcrank hook, Alistar combo, etc. So we want to make sure that our CC that kind of has a long cooldown, right? 12 seconds is pretty long in a laning phase. We want to make sure that it's always gaining value. And this is a really important thing that if you apply will do you justice. So you see how like the minions are starting to go low. We don't need to throw our snare here. You've already effectively zoned them and they're running away. We don't want to do that. If you want to create some pressure though, what you can do is use Q and W. So to kind of break it down a little bit more complex about how like the plants work, the plants target whatever's the closest, unless you auto attack the player or you hit a spell beforehand. So right, if you hit a snare and then you spawn a plant, like as the snare is going off, the plant will obviously target them. Same thing goes off when you like Q, hit somebody and there's a plant there, the plant will target them as long as they're in range. So open space is really great for you. So you see how like there's no wave coming for a little bit and there's all this open space. So you can just spawn a plant there, and honestly, plants do a lot of what you want to do. So on Zyra, right, you take the Scorch, you take the Comet, and the plant itself. Just all of those things that I just told you compound into a lot of power in the laning phase. Plus, you want to make sure you're farming your Spell Thieves and getting your mana flow on cooldown. So a lot of times for the early laning phase, the real way you want to play it is you just want to leverage plants. You want to be really hard to get onto, and you want to leverage your plants. Snares are a luxury, not a requirement for laning phase. I want to really reiterate that. Snares are a luxury, not a requirement. And usually they're a deterrent, where like, if they're trying to go in on me, I can use the snare to disengage, and it's way easier to hit somebody who's diving in on me. So like for these kinds of scenarios, what you want to do is just spawn a plant. Just spawn a ranged plant rather than throwing a snare. That way, you can proc your Scorch, Mana Flow, Spell Thieves, all that fun jazz, and it'll do like 70 to 80 damage. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a ton of opportunities in laning phase to do this. And as long as you're consistently utilizing these, you'll actually chip people out of laning phase way easier than trying to always hit every spell and combo it with a plant. This is also really great, by the way, as a technique when anyone takes a brush. So, like, for example, let's just say Rel is sitting in this brush, right? And you're like, well, fuck, he's, like, in that brush. What you can do is you can actually just press Q and spawn a plant, and you can just shove it on the wall. And then the minions will be all in the middle, right? So then even if you don't hit the Q, the plants will just hit him over and over again, and it will force him to, like, respond to that. Same concept applies basically right here. We want to make sure we're just, shooting our Qs, harassing people through the minion wave, and calling it a day in that sense. Because right now, what I get the feeling of is you're trying to grand slam your lane. Hit the snare, walk up, like crush him, make him lose a ton of HP. But really what I want is just good fundamentals about, lightly poking people, slowly whittling them down, making income, etc. Because really what we want to do is we want to get push, and then we want to pressure the turret. So, for example, right, you have this huge wave pushing. We want to be working on those plates, because plates are an only available gold for the first 14 minutes, right? You can't get them afterwards. They disappear forever. And honestly, Zyra's biggest problem is her build is really expensive. So we want to make sure that we're building good fundamentals on poking and getting those plates. Because if you get those plates consistently and you lane well, then you'll be ahead a lot of the time, and it will just give you access to the income that you need to kind of carry those games, you know? Have all that extra gold, get the Leandries way faster, etc. So that's what we want to look to create as much as possible. So, for example, good pressuring under the turret has 2 core fundamentals. Number 1 is when you hit someone with a skill, the turret turns and hits you, right? So what you want to do is you really don't want to hit them with skills until your wave is like very small. So you see how like there's a very big wave? You have a lot of time where you can actually just sit there and hammer this turret. So we want to make sure that you're kind of only really throwing skill shots at people towards the later stages of the game, or like later stages of like the wave. Another thing to note too is what I want you to kind of pay attention to is positioning. So when you look at this also, you see how like the AD carry is really tucked under the turret, right? He can access all of these minions from pretty far away, etc.
Yeah.
One of the things that changes, though, is he has to leave his turret and kind of be, like, all the way out here to get ranged minions. They're further away, right? They're ranged, duh. And because of that, it leaves them more exposed. So it's so much easier for you to harass people when they go for ranged minions. So those are kind of the 2 things, right? Make sure we're working on the plates, not using spells too early for poking. Let's write this down. For turret plates. Number 1, when poking, do it when they go for ranged minions. And number 2 is make sure you're autoing the turret as much as you can. This will just like generate you gold. It will create pressure in the lane, and honestly a lot of times it will be kind of your bread and butter for snowballing games. And then I guess number 3 is play around cannons. So when it comes to like poking and playing against melee matchups, the best time and most exposed time to kind of bully a tank, you know, get him chunked, take out his HP, etc. He wants to relic the cannons. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to all these 3 things as they're kind of happening. So you see he's tucked away, so you do a good job. You auto attack here, perfect. You auto attack again. So he's going to go for this cannon. So you should be ready and be dumping all of your damage into this guy right here, right? So we're only going to snare. We're not auto attacking. You're already out of range where you can't deal any damage. So it's a little bit harder for you to do that. And now see how far away you are? You're not actually making him fight for any of these minions, and we're now walking over to this location. So you should have actually just like leveraged the pressure that you had and continue to chip away at the turrets. I know you're walking over here because you wanted to reinforce your jungler, but plates are kind of the premium in most of these scenarios. So then we use our exhaust. I think in general, one thing that I've kind of seen with your snares, like just so far, is I just think you make your snares way too hard to hit. So for like example, like right here, you're actually throwing snares kind of at max range most of the time. I really want to try and cut that habit. So for like snare info, let's stop trying to use them at max range. Let enemies like walk into us, or you know, you can use exhaust to make it easier. Or just wait till they hit your teammates. You know, so like, if you didn't know, Shaco has a slow. You know, his E is a slow. So you could just wait till maybe he just throws his E again and slow him down. That way it'll be a lot easier for you to hit. Because right now, kind of like all of the snares that I've watched you do, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're actually just making it way harder for you to hit your stuff. And there's a lot of easier ways to like solve it. Like imagine right here if you have your snare, you know, you've walked up, you've used your exhaust, you're on top of them. Just significantly easier for you to hit those kinds of spells. Like yeah, there's always that like just hit the spell forehead, but there's no reason for you to make it nearly as tough on yourself as it is. And we end up killing him, but I feel like you're probably dead here too. Alrighty, then we'll get the Lucidity boots. Big fan. Let's see here. So what do you think my thoughts are so far on like what's going on after the reset? Like after you die?
I probably could have gone mid.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's just going to be significantly harder for you to like see how much extra walking you kind of have to do for all of this extra stuff. Whereas if you just walked mid originally, you can get that vision down easily. Honestly, if you're struggling with EXP, by the way, you can just soak some of the EXP in mid, like help him push it out. Like, what you could have done, too, is, instead of going bottom, like, see how he's, like, kind of lighter on mana? And this is a good gank, by the way. As you can always just, like, help your teammate push out mid and then move in and get the wards down, too, just so that you make your opponent, like, stuck under the turret. So good poke, good, good gank. We got some pressure going here, so we're getting a ward. But, oh, okay, maybe we're getting the second one. All right, perfect. So we do get the vision down, but that's kind of like another 30 or 45 seconds that you kind of meandered and didn't get anything done.
Yeah, I thought about it too much.
Yeah, exactly. And now kind of what I want to point out too is like this is just such a bad wave. And a lot of that is actually because of the fact that you walked bottom. Because if you had walked here, got all the vision down, and you were here 30 seconds beforehand, and maybe your Twitch resets or whatever, you could have actually just gotten a whole wave to yourself, oh, this wave is pushing out, I need to push this as fast as possible. Zyra is actually a great noob fixer, I call her, because like I'm sure you've had this before where, oh, you're supposed to go mid to get vision down, well, no one shows up, guess the wave's mine, right? Guess the wave's mine. Same thing applies to this, where you could have gotten this whole wave to yourself, so you'd actually be really rich and you wouldn't have a messed up wave. So that's why like putting wards down mid is really important. One thing to note, though, is let's just talk about vision real quick. So the core fundamental of vision, in case like you're not quite sure, is every jungle has two corridors, right? Two ways to get to the river / like gank you or whatever. This is like the other corridors, right? Following me so far? So the other thing that's really important about your vision, though, is that you're covering the third secret corridor, which is the river. So, so you did a great job. You put these wards down. Love it. Just what I want you to work on now is I want you to try to make sure to remember to put a ward in the river. I can go here or here, just depending on your comfort level, but it's just really important that we have that piece of information. I'm sure you've had a lot of scenarios where like maybe the jungler runs over one of these wards and disappears into the river, and you're like, is he doing dragon? Is he camping me? Like, what's going on here, right? You don't know quite what's going on. So having this extra ward here is really great for that. Plus, if you ever get pushed or you're giving ground because you're concerned about being ganked or anything like that, this allows you to actually see if your enemy support is moving. And it also allows you to see if the enemy mid laner is moving. So it just gives you a ton of extra information on kind of those two other factors, which is kind of the bot lane and the mid lane moving around the map. So you did a good job. I love these wards. Please keep doing this. Super good. Just need the last piece of the puzzle, right? On our sightstone, which is right here. Because that will help you a ton in those scenarios where it just allow you to keep track of people a little bit better. And then just kind of like lightly touching on it, this is also like why I talk about like the plate stuff. So you see how you're going to walk up and throw your spells at people at full HP and like the wave is just now touching. Because you do that, you just get no time on the turret. Right? So you see how like, oh, my snare's down, I don't feel like I can play aggressive, so now like I can't play for the turret. And despite actually having like a lot of, built up waves and pressure in the lane, you got 0 plates. Whereas I think if I had this circumstance, even with the missing flash, I would probably have 2 plates right now. And that's kind of what we definitely wanted to help you do is, making sure that we're getting those plates, getting better at taking those plates.
Okay. I remember one of my biggest issues was sometimes I would overstay for plates, and I think I probably just overcompensated for that. Okay. Because I use Professor, I use your link, and so one of the things I get very consistently is ignores turrets, but it's like, I haven't found the middle ground, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So like the middle ground is really just about saving your cooldowns.
I thought I could fight her in the wave, clearly not.
Okay. No, yeah, that's not like the biggest of deals, honestly. So what? You're right here right now. I think you could have fought her in the wave if you just didn't waste your mana. Right? Like you just don't have any mana to do anything. Like if you just instead had your snare, your the extra 80 mana to kind of play around with, I think you're probably fine, but right? So imagine if like you just didn't use your snare on the wave, you'd probably be good here. Right? I think for sure you'd be good here. That was just a little unfortunate. I kind of like the thinking of it, actually. It's not unreasonable. If you had been a little bit sharper with that, I know why you were putting it at the edge, right? You didn't want to like get jumped on or whatever. you've been a little bit sharper with that, and that seed, the plant was in the brush, you also probably would have had her too, because then you would have actually had vision of the brush. Alright, so we're moving here. Yeah, I really do feel like you just don't do yourself any favors with your snares. Straight up. Like, I think you try too hard to, like, hit from really long range, and a lot of times I feel like you don't let your teammates set you up. So, like, for example, right, we're moving to mid right now. He's just so far away from you, you know? Like, look at how, like, he's running away, you know? A lot of times this is just going to be a hard snare to hit. They're just so far away from you. So I think that's definitely like a huge talking point for sure for you, just to like make it way easier for you to hit snares, you know, kind of let people either, you know, push in on you or, you know, let your teammates CC for you, you know, just taking those easier ones. Cause I think when you're given like the easy ones, you're doing a good job slam dunking them. So like, you know, not here, but like, look at how much closer you are. They're slowed, right? They're slowed down by stuff. They're trying to return fire, etc. So, you know, that was a super successful one. I love it. A lot of times in League of Legends, a lot of people do a really good job making the game way harder for themselves than it ever needs to be. Also, we need to put a ward here and then a ward in the river. Even though you got the rift, even though you got the scuttle, it's still really good for us to put down that ward. You're backing with 2 words right now, which we definitely want to avoid as much as possible. We want to make sure we're putting on all of our vision all the time. So like a ward here was going to be great. You could have also warded here. You know, if you go, oh, hey, I got the scuttle, then where could I have else warded? This is always a great spot, especially against things like Nocturne, who have nasty engages from long range. A little bit aggressive, but it ends up working out, so I think that's fine. I like that you're putting attention in mid, by the way. You're doing a good job of like actually converting your moves to stuff on the map, so make sure you keep doing that. Roams mid are actually a lot more, you know, devastating to people than people realize.
Oh yeah, the Anivia was livid in chat. I end up trading my life way too often, but I mean, getting the kills. I just know like when I play against like better skilled players, it's like a gold game, I think, when I looked. When I'm playing against... So I usually hover between gold 1 and gold 2. When I'm in gold 1, I tend to play against plat players. They punish me way harder, so none of this actually works.
Okay, so here, let's actually talk about how we can minimize deaths a lot more often. Your champion is very squishy, so a lot of times the way you kind of want to play is you want to actually have your plants be an extension of you. So you see how, you see this, like, range right here. So I'm just drawing, like, a line between the 80 carries, right? So this is about, like, 550, 600 range. It's the auto range or whatever, right? So what you want to do is you quite literally want your plant to be that. And you don't want to be that. So what I would be doing in a lot of circumstances is I will be here, and I will spawn a plant here. And that will provide the power and pressure that we need. Like, the reason why I don't really max Q at all is because usually you just use Q, you know, without dying. You just use Q to spawn range plants. And building that habit is difficult, but once you start doing it, it'll help you reduce your deaths a ton. Because, yeah, you did say, you know, you feel like you're trading a lot, you're dying a lot. Some of your deaths are kind of actually fine. Like the mid lane one, I'm not opposed to that. Okay, you know, you're setting up a gank, you know, the Nocturne comes to counter, but you pick up 2 kills, this is fine. But I would tell you right here, your death isn't fine. These are kinds of the things that are problematic. So a lot of times, I think what happens is maybe you just feel invincible because you have exhaust. You're like, all right, I have exhaust, so it's like really hard for me to die, etc. But unfortunately, the matter of fact is Zyra is literally paper. If anything touches her, even sometimes through exhaust, you will just fall over and die. So I don't recommend that you walk up like this, you know, like you're walking in like way too far for it. So like, for example, what would I do in this scenario? So you're walking into this play, right? You're moving in, and really what you should do is you're moving in. I would just spawn a range plant here, and I wouldn't even use my snare right now, just so I can keep track of people. You have a numbers advantage, so you're just trying to whittle people down and create pressure. And a lot of what the biggest problem you're going to run into is running out of vision. You're not going to be able to see everything. So what I would have done here, boom, I would have instantly spawned a ranged plant. That's what I would have done immediately here. Then, when like the Rel comes in or the Samira dashes in or something like that, that's usually when you want to use your snares. And I think that might be one of the disconnects for you in general. So like, for example, when I teach people Nami, I tell them every time, you should wave first and then you bubble on the wave. And where you should be standing is really far back so that you are untouchable. We want to be untouchable. And really the way the game wants to work is that your spells are there when people dash in, like when people move into you. So a lot of like, remember when I was talking about earlier in the stages, oh, like he's running away from you, you shouldn't be using your snare like that. Make sure that like people are being corralled into you, and we want to use the snare that way. It's a lot easier to hit your skill shots, and it usually puts you in way less danger. Because the way you should look at it right here, and why maybe you're dying so much, is that you're just not you're so close that they're gonna use their dashes, and at that point in time there's no out for you. So like, look at how on top of you they are, right? So imagine what I would say to you is, imagine instead of being here, you're here and you've spawned a range plant and you're just sitting here, and Rel uses W. Like Rel can't get you, right? Like Samir can't get you. And then you can throw the root, you can start slowing people down, use the ultimate if it's up, etc. That's kind of how we want our play patterns to be, is you're just using ranged plants, and your snare is a response. It's not a proactive thing. Oh, they're coming in on me. Perfect. Now I can use my snare. Slow them down, start CCing them, make it a pain in the ass for them to get on top of you. That's what you want to be doing. Because otherwise what you're kind of doing right here, and maybe in general that you feel like you're struggling with or like dying a lot, is that you're kind of getting Lulu, you're getting Lulu syndrome, which is like, I coached somebody who played Lulu a lot, and they kept dying all the time, and they were wondering why they died, and it was like, well, you try to lead every fight with your polymorph, so like you're up in front. Rather than, Rel jumps in and then, Samira jumps in and then you're 600 feet behind your teammate and then you can polymorph them and you're still safe on ranged. And that's really what we want to be doing for our play patterns. Because, like, when I play Zyra, my first instinct is to throw a Q and W. It's never to snare. But I think that when I'm watching you, your first instinct when you're approaching someone is to snare them. And because of that, you're standing in a way that, leaves you really exposed. Very easy for you to die. Even right there, right? So, like, for example, like this, like, I'm pretty confident that you're walking up to snare him, right? You're trying to walk up and snare him and CC him. And then, look, because you're using it like that, you're in range of everything else. It's not like snare outranges anything. And that's kind of maybe where the disconnect is going on and why you probably feel like you're dying a lot. I like that you're being proactive, but unfortunately Zyra isn't the champion where you run around and like gank people and start the fights. You're supposed to poke people down, harass them with your range plants, be a pain in the ass to get on top of, and then when the enemy team dives in, you're there to counter it and you're not in danger. And that is really what we want to look for when it comes to Zyra. Like, you're playing these fine, like, okay, good job flashing, you did bait him in, but one extra spell and you're toast. And I think that links to a lot of, why you die maybe a lot of the times, or why you feel like, oh god, like, I'm getting killed a lot more than I think I should be getting. Because 12 deaths, I'll just be honest, like, 12 deaths is way too much. We should be looking at, like, 5 to 6. Like, yeah, every once in a while you have a pretty rough game. Maybe you die 8, 9, even maybe 10 times in like a really bloodbathy kind of game, or maybe there's like a super fed Kha'Zix or something like that. But really, 12's like really excessive. I think that's like really, really way too high. And I think that I can already point to 2 or 3 deaths that just are unnecessary in this game right off the bat. And we're, about halfway through everything. Also, honestly, what I would recommend for you is a change in runes. I see that you are running Taste of Blood. Not a fan of it at all. Really, the runes that I think you should be taking is if you are ever against a lane that all-ins you, this is, these 3 runes are fine. You can see this, right? Yeah. These 3 runes are fine, but really what I have been taking recently and I love is this. The Resolve and Conditioning. It'll give you literally 25% more armor and MR. You'll be way harder to kill, especially for people who want to build Armor Pen and Magic Pen. So if you didn't know, by the way Pen works is the closer it brings you to 0, the more valuable it is. So like when you have really low armor and MR, every point of armor and MR shred obliterates you. But if you have higher numbers, then it depreciates it a lot. So things like Conditioning do really wonders against things like Magic Pen and Armor Pen. Big fan of it. And then the Overgrowth just gives you a lot of extra HP. It's going to give you about 100 to 150 HP, which is like 400 gold. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. That's an incredible amount of extra HP that you can get. Especially because, Zyra doesn't build an HP item, especially in the early stages, right? So this will help you a ton. I think if you start using the Resolve secondary, if there's a lot of Assassins or all-in champions, you play against Rel, Leona, Nautilus, Pike. There's a Kha'Zix, a Nocturne for this example. I think you'll like this rune page. It'll help you a lot. It'll help you die a lot less, and it'll also give you just time to react and actually throw out spells in case you are getting jumped on.
Okay.
Yeah, big fan of it. Definitely recommend it. Okay. Okie dokie. So then Dragon is up. Fortunately, your setup doesn't really matter in this case because they ended up using a bunch of things on you at the same time. So you get this dragon like pretty easily. So I'm going to lightly touch on it, really. But I don't feel like I need to do too much about it because I feel like your wards are not bad. So one thing that's really important, though, is wherever you put your pink ward down, we want vision around that pink ward. So, for example, right, you put your pink ward here. So you want to ward over this. And the reason for that is a lot of times in the mid game when nothing's kind of going on and you go like, what the hell am I supposed to do, right? Like what is going on? Like how am I supposed to do stuff? What can I do to like create pressure and actually be useful to our team? Is to pick a line brush, to ward over it, and then you clear the wave, and then you just keep going back and forth here. And then if they ever walk over to try and get vision down, you're there, you can see them, and you can make catches on people. Really easy rhythmic way to play the mid game without overcomplicating anything in the game at all, and it will give you a lot more opportunities. Plus, as a general footnote, you have to have a mid lane ward down. The reason why you push down mid lane is because of the fact that it accesses the map the easiest, and having a mid lane ward down allows you to see how many enemy players are maybe going to show up to that wave, or maybe you see them after they clear the wave and they start walking to the top side, so then you know that like top lane's getting collapsed on. Gives you a ton of information. So we want to make sure that we are always mid-game putting a mid lane ward down. Okay, so you're doing good parts of it. We just need to kind of link it all together. I think that's really where a lot of it comes down to.
This fight was scuffed. Kind of figured we could get him when he had no MR.
All right, let's check it out. You start walking over. He W's in. You walking in right here. Use the snare. He flashes over it. I mean, that's just really well played by him. I probably just stop chasing at this point in time. Like, you've already missed your snare and he's going to get out of your ultimate. I would just kind of let it go. That was a good roam. I like the pressure, but I think you and the Riven just bite off way more than you can chew. That's kind of what I would look at. Also, as an aside note, by the way, he does have MR. Sunfire Cape does have a lot of MR attached to it, 30 of it. Plus, if he, melee champions actually get MR per level. So if you're actually kind of curious, right here, he has actually 76 MR. So he's actually a lot tankier than you realize. 46 base, etc. Just as like a future reference point. If that was like one of the reasons why you kind of factored in. I thought it was it's fine roam. It's just chased a little bit too much. He flashed over your snare. That sucks or whatever, but sometimes you just, okay, get the small victory and then leave. And then basically I would say like right here, like this is kind of just a waste of time for the most part. What you should be doing is getting vision down. So, whenever you're met with these circumstances where maybe you can't get vision in the spot that you want to do, getting vision in the spot that you can get to is really, really important. So, like, for example, right, let's go back a little bit. So, right here-ish. So you see how like all the action is happening in the bottom side. So instead of you don't go bottom, you're just mid right now, for example. And you know they're doing a play over here. They eventually get Nocturne ulti. They're getting killed, whatever. And you're at a numbers disadvantage, right? And you probably go like, well, how the hell am I supposed to get vision? You know what you can do? Is you can push out this wave, and you can get vision in the other side of the map. And the way you should think about vision sometimes is, sometimes you can't always get vision where you want it like pristinely, but you can use vision to build vision. Vision's a building block. So what I mean by that is if you walked into the top side and you get vision here, and here, and here, right? Then you know for the next 2.5 minutes where they aren't if they don't show up on any of that vision. So that means that you know that like you have to stay away from this side. And it will allow you to actually like play through that information really, really well. Because I would say like right here, this is kind of just like a waste of time. All of this is just a waste of time. Yeah, sure, it feels great to like have that pocket, you know, the money in your pocket. But you actually could have just had as much money just pushing in this turret, putting wards down in these spots, and then maybe even just, you know, like stealing the Wraith camp, for example. And then you'd be here for this play too. And I guarantee you that play looks really good if you're there. Alright, we're chilling right now. A little bit of a push. Going here right now, clearing out some wards, waiting for this dragon to spawn. Get some poke off. I like this. Good, good, good. Good control though. I feel like when the flow isn't crazy, it seems like you're pretty comfortable. But when it's hectic, it's really hard for you to play the game.
Yeah.
Does that feel pretty fair? And I feel like a lot of that is just systemic from the fact that you do just run up and try to hit snares like in melee range. I think that gets you killed a lot, and then your flow is kind of off. Right? Because I would immediately even just say like right here in this fight, it's kind of the same vibes. Where okay, we're invading a little bit, you're walking in a little bit, and you're looking for a snare. Right? So like you're looking for a snare, they're really far away, and like see how like everyone's almost on top of you already because we're walking up and trying to put a snare to someone, for example. Yeah. And then it just kind of leaves you exposed to getting jumped on. Then, you know, your ultimate is I call it a naked ultimate. You know, it has no plants on it, not a lot of DPS going off or whatever. And then we kind of see like the same mistake over and over again where you're not really playing like at max range and just throwing seeds and kiting backwards. So, like, if you wanted an example of, like, how I would have positioned for this. So, right here, for example, you don't need a plant all the way over here. You can just spawn a plant here and start hitting him. You don't need to be this far. So, like, when this, like, good route, great route, actually. But we want to make sure we're paying attention to our W cooldown, for sure. So that we can get a plant, so then everything's going off, right? You can just spawn a plant and just spawn it right here. You don't need to go this deep to do that. Maybe it's because you didn't even realize that people were collapsing on you or whatever, but this is systemic from the fact that I think that you just feel the need to be really in range of everything. So, like, when I watch this, I go, oh, you wanted the Q to hit and the plant, right? Rather than just spawning a plant and just moving on for it. The way you should think about it, too, is especially since you're copying my build, almost all of your damage is actually procs. I call them procs, which is just, you know, your plant hits them once, Comet goes off, Scorch goes off, Leandry's goes off, and that's where you're going to get a lot of your damage is actually on the go off parts. So you don't need like a lot of spells to hit. In fact, honestly, like you don't need any spells to hit. That's kind of why I love this build. You just have ranged plants hit people and they'll burn them to death. You know, because like see how deep you are into the fight now because you're trying to hit that Q, go for everything, and then you're gonna run in here and look for the snare. You're just like you just leave yourself like so exposed all the time, and that really is what's leading you to die a ton. So really, I just think we want to work on our order of operations, which is just we spawn plants from 600, whatever the metric is, 600 units that then auto 600 more units. Stop leading with your root. Root is for enemies who dash into your teammates. Cause like here, I'm gonna actually do something a little troll, but it's a good way to do it. Where is paint? Okay, so like really ideally with what we want to do when it comes to positioning is kind of like this. So this is your teammate, right? So we'll just do X for our teammate, and then red is for our opponents. The way you want to position is you want to be here. And then what happens is your red opponent goes into range. And then you are going to spawn like your plant. Your plant will pop off here, right? And so it will start shooting them. But guess what? You're all the way back here. You're not touchable. So then what happens is too is
are you talking right now?
I can't believe I was muted. I'm so sorry about that. Okay. So let me start from the beginning actually. Because I guess I was muted. My bad. So you see the red guy, right? The red guy is your opponent. The green guy is your teammate, and this is you. So you see the red guy, right? You see how like the red guy. Let's just use Irelia as a simple example. So red guy, Irelia wants to go in, so he goes in on your teammate. Guess what? Now you're in a position where he's not on top of you, but he's used his dash. Well, now what you can do is you can use things like your snare, or spawn plants, and then you're using your snare to spawn plants to hit this player that's already on top of your teammate. And you can then like use your Zyra ultimate, for example, and zone them, etc. This is what we want for our positioning. What is happening in your positioning is obviously not that. So we want to make sure we're creating that. So what I want to point back to is just kind of like that last fight, so you can kind of visually see it. Which is that there's not players between you and your opponents. So you see how, like, when you're walking up and trying to use a snare or, like, create pressure, etc. See how, like, there's not really anybody between you and your opponents? So, like, they can get on top of you with whatever dashes they have. Want to avoid that as much as possible. And this is a great example, too. So, like, you see how when you walk up all the way up here, like, there's not really, like, that many people that are between you and your opponents again. So that's kind of what we always want to create. We always want to create that scenario where, I know it's a really shitty drawing, but where, your opponent uses the dash in, and then you meet their dash with, like, your snare, your root, your ultimate, etc. And this is also where you're just spawning plants and shooting people. So, like, you spawn, like, you spawn a little fire plant, and then it, like, pew, 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 pews. See how, like, pew, pew, pews all the way over there? But we're always in the safe spot. They can't reach us. Because your Q is not actually a damage spell. It's a fake damage spell. It's there for level laning phase, but it's really just there for you to spawn plants and then harass people as like the series goes forward. Because I think we're going to see that a lot in this game, which is why I don't want to dwell on it too much. Plus, I think the replay's about to break. And definitely want to work on our mid lane wards, because sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. So just like leveling up our consistency and making sure we do it all the time is a really, really important thing for us to be doing. Resetting again. Actually, we're doing this.
I needed just enough to get demonic.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not the end of the world. That is the beauty, right? You can do like camps, etc. So we come over here. And then they jump on our teammate. We use our snare and ultimate. But they can all just pile on you because, you're not using it in a way that your teammates are between you. And that kind of gets you killed again. That was like more of an acceptable ultimate, to be completely fair with you, though. I'm like more cool with what you just did there than pretty much most of what we've been seeing. So that one's just kind of like an unlucky death. Oh, wow. It's a really hectic game. Okay. I feel like I could go on, but I think a lot of this is going to turn into messy team fights. So really, what I want you to work on, moving forward, are just like very simple things. So what we want from you, moving forward, level 1 things. Remember the level 1 things. I know it's been kind of a long one, but making sure that we're standing in the right spot. So just a quick reminder: level 1 spot, boom, right here. And level 1 spot, boom, right here. That way we're just not giving away free kills, at level 1. It's just super unnecessary in that sense. Number 2, if you do get invaded or maybe you just lose control of one of the sides of the map, don't be afraid to just walk over, ward over the buff, or walk over here and then like ward over here. Just get yourself that information so you know whether or not they're going to walk behind you and cheese you. It'll do you wonders, and it'll save you a bunch of mental problems if you get, getting cheese is like no fun. No one likes to have that happen. Next is pay attention to when our minion HP is low, right? We want to make sure that we're throwing our snares out at the opportune times rather than throwing them from so far distance, right? You're not doing yourself any favors because you're just making it a lot harder for you to hit your snares. And then tying into that, which is just stop walking up and trying to actually snare people. Use your range plants to harass people, make them come into you, and then use your snare because of it. Remember the positioning scenario that we kind of like looked at with my beautiful drawing. Pablo Picasso would be proud of it. Where we want to make sure that there's kind of a guy between us and we're just harassing, and if they dash in, then we're using our CC on them. Right? And then always want to do mid lane wards, and we talked a little bit, about the plant spawning. And really the other thing that I want you to start slowly working on is just taking some plates. You've done a great job getting the push off, and it seems like you're getting comfortable with poking, but we want to convert that. We want to make sure that you're getting the most bang out of your buck in your laning phase. And right now you're not, because we're not taking turret plates. So remember, when we're with turret plates, when poking, do it when they go for the range minions. Way easier. They're untucked from their turret. A lot easier to use our skills. Make sure you're autoing the turret. And make sure that you can play around cannons, right? We can convert those cannons into great harass for the support that's walking up, especially when you play against melee champions. And I guess number 4 is don't start poking instantly when wave crashes. Then you have to walk away over and over, and that loses you time on hitting plates. And I will fix that. Yeah, those are pretty much like the main things that I kind of want you to take away from this game. Do you have any other questions or things that you'd like me to go over that maybe I didn't cover, or just questions bouncing around in your head that might not even be related to this game in general?
No, I think you were pretty thorough, honestly.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's hard to break those habits, so don't get me wrong, like you're not gonna see that in a day, but I think that if you really try to retool your brain to be like, okay, QW first, poke them, and then E when they come in on me, rather than that. And you have to play a lot more patiently, for sure, but this will reduce your deaths a lot and highly increase your teamfight potency. Because if you're surviving for a long period of time, you get to just spawn a plant, harass them, poke them down, whittle them down, just like do a lot more in a team fight. The longer you're alive, the way better it is. So we want to make sure we're building those good tools to stay alive. Okie dokie. Then, that's pretty much it for this. I will hand you off the note sheet that we got, and if any questions come to mind, just feel free to reach out to me, and hopefully you found this helpful, my dude.